Welcome back to the David Pakman Show.
Welcome to the bonus show. Let's talk about China. Well, more specifically about Foxconn. Of course, this is the type of thing that could happen anywhere. Foxconn, as I'm sure everybody knows, is a terrible, terrible company. They treat their workers like crap. And we hate them, yet they make everything we use every day. And there's really no way to avoid it. Now they're in some serious hot water over the PlayStation 4. Apparently, they were offering thousands of university students at a technological university internships. It's like a work study program. Now, in a country where information is, well, not as readily available as it is here, I think a lot of these students maybe had no idea what they would be getting into when they went to Foxconn. And basically just a repetitive job where you're basically an assembly line worker, of course. And maybe they made it sound great when they told these kids they'd be building PlayStation 4s. I mean, that sounds pretty cool if you don't know what happens at Foxconn. And I have to imagine that the university was basically in I don't know. There's something shady going on between the university and Foxconn. Apparently, they were actually awarded credit for this, but if any student did not complete the program, they would lose college credits.
So not only would they not get the credits for the internship, but they would lose credits for classes they had already taken.
Right. And of course, Sony is coming under fire for this, saying, well, there are policies and codes and none of this stuff is supposed to happen. There was all sorts of overtime going on. There was, let's see, what else? Underage people, possibly.
Yeah, the regular suite of stuff. We're not really surprised by this anymore. We're pretty familiar with it. I just wonder whether there are candid, like I would love to hear candid conversations within Sony or the different companies that have their products manufactured by Foxconn, where do they say to each other, you know, it's really bad what's going on, like we've got to do something. And then someone else says, what can we do? We would go out of business if we went to someone else who was going to charge us more. Foxconn just has the scale to provide us with what we need. It's like, yeah, but I feel guilty. I mean, kids are in terrible working conditions. There's child labor and all this other stuff. I feel horrible. Listen, when you got promoted to this position as executive, you knew this was going on, and you can't be the one who changes it. It could destroy the company. Like, I wonder if there's conversations like that at Sony.
Probably. I would imagine so. And I'm sure Sony doesn't actually care what's going on at Foxconn as long as they get their PlayStations. But this is pretty bad. I feel bad for these kids. They're basically being turned into slaves, being told that they'd have a great work-study internship. Sad stuff.
Well, I wonder about that because, you know, Sony doesn't care. And I've taken in some graduate coursework about kind of corporate culture and the dichotomy that often exists where the company is either good or it is bad. And often the company itself isn't really anything, right? A company is more or less amoral. It's made up of people. And individually, I doubt that we'd be able to find many people at Sony who don't care about this stuff, right? But it becomes this thing where the structure of the company is what makes is what creates a situation where people make decisions for the company that they don't personally agree with, and I don't know how you can get around that in these large corporations.
Well, at the same time, I mean, there are people making the, quote, right decisions, the correct decisions, because it's in the best interests of the company, you know, in situations like this. I mean, sometimes they're making purely business decisions. Sometimes they're making PR decisions. And it's, you know, a lot of the time it is just whatever's in the best interest of the company.
But isn't a PR decision a business decision? Because bad PR hurts business and good PR helps.
Not necessarily. Sometimes you have to make sacrifices in the PR department, I think. I mean, that may not be the case here, but I think that can happen. But anyway, hopefully this stops over there. And I don't know. Hopefully, hopefully one day Foxconn workers can make livable wages and have good working conditions. Now, a few weeks ago, I watched the movie, the documentary Exit Through the Gift Shop, which was about street artists, and it featured Banksy, who is one of the world's most famous and talented, I guess, street artists. And I talked with David about it. He watched it. He liked the movie. I loved it. It was a great movie. It was really interesting learning about the world of street art and some of its more interesting characters. But it did kind of reinforce some of my beliefs about the art world. Now, apparently, Banksy set up a little stall in Central Park, well, on the border of Central Park, where I guess there are all these just little stalls set up and people are selling all sorts of shit. And he put up original stenciled prints that he did himself, and started selling them for $60 a piece. He had some random guy at the stall selling this stuff. And basically, there was about $1 million worth of art in this stall. And he sold in one day about $420 worth of stuff, which has an actual estimated value of about $225,000. So if you were observant enough to realize that this was Banksy art, and then maybe ask the guy if it was authentic and see what he said, you could have made a fortune off just buying up all of these prints.
Do we know for sure whether individuals who bought stuff know what they have?
None of these people knew what they had. None of these people knew. You can watch the whole video. It was captured on video. They made a little short out of it. And nobody knows what they have or what it is. Now, some people are saying that, well, the streets are littered with Banksy ripoffs, and probably a lot of people just thought that was what was going on here. But at the same time, this is basically something that Banksy tries to highlight, is just the ridiculousness of this and the inflation and the absurdity of it all. And even making the claim that $60 is probably too high for this stuff, considering that it's just spray paint of a stencil he made on a tiny little piece of paper or canvas.
Yeah, so I know you have a huge problem with the valuation of artwork and that type of thing. I think the more interesting thing here, though, is the subjectivity of the value. Forget about whether you think that it's a difficult piece of art to make or not. That's kind of, we've had that discussion, and okay, that's a separate thing. But the idea that if nobody knows what they have, how much is it really worth? And ultimately, it's only worth what it is worth to them in their home or wherever it is that they're displaying it, right? And this is proof. Without knowing the so-called street value of it, the true value of it, it's only worth to them whatever it is that it's worth to them having purchased it at the low price, right? It doesn't, I don't know that for people who aren't aware that it's worth more, it makes absolutely no difference that in actuality it is very expensive.
Right. And to several people, these are worth $60 a piece. And it's just, I don't know, it's just interesting. This kind of reminds me of that experiment where the violinist, one of the most famous in the world, went into Grand Central and started playing, and almost nobody stopped to watch. A couple people stopped for a minute. Nobody really had any idea who he was, or that what he was playing was so incredible and difficult. Just kind of along the same lines. But I guess the fact that there are Banksy ripoffs everywhere in New York didn't really help this situation. There's an interesting story here about Jupiter and Saturn. And some scientists are theorizing, I don't know if this is 100% confirmed, but they're saying that there could be basically diamond rain on Jupiter and Saturn. Apparently, there's these lightning storms turn methane into soot which basically hardens into chunks of graphite and then diamond as it falls. And these hailstones eventually melt into just into the planet's hot core. And they're saying that the biggest diamonds would be about 1 centimeter in diameter. And obviously there is just tons of this stuff. But we also know that there are basically, it has been theorized that there are planets out there that are just completely covered in diamonds, right? Didn't we discuss that?
Yeah, I don't know if we discussed that or asteroids or that some planets might have a completely diamond core. I am convinced that the so-called precious metals that are precious only because of their sometimes fabricated scarcity on this planet are going to, the market is going to be completely thrown out of whack once we find a gold asteroid, a diamond asteroid, or whatever the case may be, because it simply doesn't make any sense that it would still be worth as much if we had so much more of it. Now, there's already a lot of people who say that and it seems to be backed up by fact, that the diamond market, the diamond supply rather, is way bigger than what is kind of on the open market, because if all of the diamond that is in storage was put on the open market, it would drastically reduce the price of the value, the market value of diamonds. I'm convinced as space travel becomes more prevalent and expands, we're going to come across finds that will completely devalue lots of what we consider to be precious on this planet.
Probably. And I look forward to that, although, yeah, let's be honest, it's not going to happen in our lifetimes. But
I don't know about that. I was just listening to a podcast yesterday saying that realistically, mining asteroids is probably no more than 10 years away.
All right. Well, I will not be signing up for that, but something to look forward to. It's also interesting just to think about all the natural phenomena that are occurring on other planets and other solar systems, galaxies, and things we probably just can't even comprehend. And just interesting to think that there's diamond hail happening in our solar system. Who knows what's happening everywhere else? That would be very interesting, far more interesting than mining asteroids, I think. But anyway, that's it for today's bonus show.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.